Other planets like Earth, where we could breathe, might not be that rare and could even be super common. But that is not the full story. I'm going to show you that there are planets out there that aren't like Earth that we might still be able to breathe on. And on the other hand, just because a planet kind of looks like Earth doesn't mean we could live there. It all comes down to the kinds of planets we've discovered throughout the galaxy. There are most likely billions of planets orbiting other stars in the Milky Way. As of today, we've discovered around 6,000 of them, and many of these worlds, or exoplanets, are extremely different from the planets in our solar system. There are planets out there whose atmospheres are blowing off into space. There are planets the size of Jupiter that orbit right up next to their stars. There are stars that have several planets packed around them tight. There are planets that orbit 2 stars instead of 1, and there are some planets that don't even orbit any star anymore, but just drift through space, completely dark and alone. And it gets weirder. One of the most common kinds of planets scientists have found in the galaxy doesn't exist in the solar system. They're called super-Earths and mini-Neptunes because they're bigger than Earth but smaller than Neptune. Some are rocky, some are icy, some have atmospheres, some don't. Some might even be totally covered in ocean. So this means we have all these different kinds of planets. How many could really be like Earth? Well, it depends what you mean by like Earth. If you mean a world that's about the size of Earth, that's rocky, and takes about a year to go around its star, then we've confirmed only a couple planets like that so far, like Kepler-62f and Kepler-1126c. But that's not all that matters. Venus kind of fits all these requirements, and it's nothing like Earth. If you tried to take off your spacesuit on the surface of Venus, you'd breathe in hot acid as your face gets melted and crumpled in by the heat and pressure at the same time. We also need to know, are these planets the right temperature to have liquid water on their surface? Or are they more extreme? Because water is one of the most basic requirements for life as we know it. Every creature we know of on Earth needs water to survive. This is why astronomers define something called the habitable zone, the area around a star where a planet with an Earth-like atmosphere could orbit and be not too hot or too cold to have liquid water on its surface. But just because a planet is in the habitable zone of its star doesn't mean we could breathe on it. Lots of other stuff might come into play. How massive is the planet? How fast does it rotate? What kind of radiation does its star send out? Its atmosphere? It all gets complicated fast. All we can say is that a planet that checks these boxes can possibly be like Earth. As for the ones that don't, can we at least say that if a world doesn't make this cut, it's not somewhere we could breathe on? No. Take super-Earths. Some super-Earths could be too large to count as Earth-like, right? But they could still have breathable atmospheres. In fact, there are scientists who think some kinds of super-Earths could be even more likely to spawn life than a planet just like Earth, because super-Earths might more easily develop magnetic fields and plate tectonics and other things that are important for life as we know it. There are also other kinds of atmospheres we could breathe in. On Earth, the air is mostly nitrogen and oxygen, but we could breathe on worlds where the air is oxygen mixed with argon or neon or helium. And bigger planets, like super-Earths, might be more likely to have these other kinds of breathable atmospheres. That doesn't mean this checklist isn't useful though. It can tell us a lot. We can take all the different planets we've discovered, including the potentially Earth-like ones, and then use it to predict how common different kinds of planets actually are. Here's what we find. Stars like the Sun have, on average, 3 small, close-in planets. We're not quite sure how many farther out planets it's common to have yet, but for roughly every 4 or 5 stars like the Sun, 1 ought to host a rocky planet about the size of Earth in its habitable zone. To be fair, there's a lot of uncertainty here. If you want 99% confidence, then we can only say there's somewhere between roughly 1 of these maybe Earth-like planets for every 20 stars like the Sun, and 7 for every 1 star. If you start thinking about stars that aren't like the Sun too, then the odds also get higher. That might seem like a huge range, but until recently we didn't even know this much. It tells us that potentially Earth-like planets could be really common, or at the very least, aren't that rare. If we take into account what kind of stars are around us, the nearest Earth-like planet could be around 15 light years away. There might be dozens within 30 light years, and there could be around 3 billion potentially Earth-like planets orbiting Sun-like stars throughout the entire Milky Way. If you want to learn more about the possibility of life on other planets and how we're searching for it, we've written a full guide linked in the description. There's a lot more to it than just studying planets around other stars. Turns out planets and moons in our own backyard could be our best bet for discovering alien life in the near future. To recap, other planets that are broadly like Earth are probably not rare, but it takes a lot investigating any one single planet to say whether we could really breathe on it or not. On the plus side, planets that aren't quite like Earth, like some super-Earths, could have exotic atmospheres we could survive in.